Welcome to the MS-Perspektive podcast, Perspective with a K as I'm German. I'm Nele von Horsten, MS patient, patient advocate and author. I'm bringing you interviews, inspiration and information about living with multiple sclerosis and show you ways how you can positively influence the disease and make the best out of your diagnosis. On ms-perspektive.com you will find the show notes, 11 free tips as a PDF and lots of other information. And now the show begins. Thanks for tuning in again and welcome to episode number 130, Living with MS Abroad, a conversation with Robert Joyce on research, resilience and life in Spain. And now enjoy the interview. Hello, Robert. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for you having time for me.
It's my absolute pleasure.
And before we actually start with the interview, it would be lovely if you could introduce yourself to the audience so they know who is with me on the podcast today and where from Ireland you are exactly and what brought you to Spain.
So, to give a brief idea of where I'm from and what I'm doing. So I'm from Ireland, from the west of Ireland, in a small little village called Recess. It had a population of about 200 people, and the family have been there for years and years and years. But it's located in Connemara, which is a very beautiful part of the country, with mountains and lakes and the ocean. And if you saw a photograph of it, you'd nearly think you were in the Caribbean or even in the Mediterranean, because the sea is a beautiful turquoise blue and lovely white beaches. So that's where I'm from, and used to living in a rural place where things are, you have to be very self-sufficient, very resilient, because you don't have the same degree of services that you would have in a city. And it makes you realize your potential as an individual because you have an ability to overcome obstacles that you encounter. So that's where I'm from. I was involved, went to university. I was involved with, when I went to university, I got a Bachelor of Commerce degree, which led me into becoming a trainee chartered accountant when I moved to London. And within a month of me being in London, I started to have some very strange sensations in my feet. They got very numb, and I had no idea what it was. But the day that it happened, I was flying back to Ireland for my graduation, and I thought it was the damp in Ireland, not from after coming from London. Anyway, I went to a doctor and things progressed. And within 3 months, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which at that time, which is more than 30 years ago, I was 23. It was unusual to be diagnosed so quickly. But I was fortunate in that the doctor that I went to, she had multiple sclerosis herself and she could see it. And she sent me to a specialist neurologist who was very interested in multiple sclerosis. And as a result, I had my lumbar puncture, which is a horrible procedure altogether. I did my ECG things and I had stuff stuck all over my head. But I also was part of an early clinical trial for the use of gadolinium in MRIs. So one of the first people to be experiencing that. And I think maybe that was the thing that gave me an idea about research so many years ago. But anyway, life progressed. My disease was relapsing, remitting. I felt numb up to my chest at one stage, and that went away. Fatigue. I had bladder issues. I had mobility issues, but the fatigue was the bit that got me the most. And as a result, I could only stay in that job for about 18 months, and I returned to Ireland and kind of had to refigure things out. And that led me to having my own small business, getting involved with different businesses over the years, and married, children. Then 2008 happened and all my businesses went belly up because of the crash, and life changed. I divorced at that stage. And not long after I separated from my wife, I had a car accident. And prior to that car accident, I was 10 years without any symptoms. And that was really fantastic. And I attribute it to being on a drug called low-dose naltrexone, which is an off-label prescription for a drug that in high doses is used for dealing with drug and alcohol dependencies. So it blocks the opioid receptors in the brain, the bit that gives you the high.
Mm-hmm.
And that super produces your immune system. And as a result of that, I was 10 years symptom free, which was really fantastic. But this car accident, which was a very minor accident, but I was hit from behind and there was a loud crack in my neck. And the following day, my right leg started feeling heavy again. And I think that set me on the course for secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. And that changed my life in such a dramatic way that I was losing the ability to do work. So this pain, and it radiates here, it's on the right side of my head, is constant. It doesn't change. It's like a permanent migraine. And no matter what medication I took, it didn't relieve the symptoms of that pain, but it also was making my MS worse. But that pain meant that I was not able to function cognitively the way I used to be able to. It had a big impact on my emotional response. So I became quite emotional, very frustrated and angry and unwilling to tolerate the norms of society as much. And that was particularly challenging. And it meant that the work that I used to do, which was involving computers and accounting and legal stuff, I just didn't have the capacity to do that anymore. So I ended up doing market research. I was one of those people that goes around the street knocking on your door saying, what do you think of this, that, and the other? But it was something that I could do at that time because I could be with somebody for 10, 15 minutes, do the thing, and it gave my head time to relax afterwards as I went to find the next person. But my mobility was getting worse. And it was getting harder and harder to walk around the place. And I remember one day I was in Galway City interviewing people, and the path leading up to one person's door was at a slight angle. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it and I said, I can't do that. I can't actually walk up that slope. And I suddenly realized I can't do this anymore. I can't even use my body. So I had lost the ability with my head to do things that involve my brain. My body was letting me down, and that led me into a position where I just could not work anymore.
How old were you by then?
That was about 12 years ago now. Mm-hmm. 2014. No, wait a sec. It was 2019 when I was really bad and I had to stop. And it was 2014 when I had the accident. Mm-hmm. Now, I was sitting at home and I had a new partner at the time, and we were talking about what do I do? What can I do to have something to do in my life? And she said, why don't you do a blog? Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, maybe I could do that. And it was something new, something different. And I started sharing my experience of living with multiple sclerosis and with chronic pain. And through that, I was able to talk about this transition from being able to work mm-hmm. to not working and the impact that it has on a person. And as luck would have it, I ended up doing some stuff with the MS Society of Ireland. They have a blog that they have called MS and Me, and they asked me to write a few posts. And that brought me back into the MS Society a bit, and they had a newsletter about research, and I was reading it one day, and there was a trial happening in the University of Galway. It was then called the National College of Ireland, Galway. Um, and they were looking for people who had multiple sclerosis to be involved in a study about a new therapy to aid cognitive problems in multiple sclerosis.
Oh.
And I thought, that's something I could do. That's something that I can use my experience of living with this illness, the impacts that it's had on me, and maybe something positive can come from that. And that was truly fantastic. And I was so lucky to be employed in that role as an assistant researcher. And my sole function in that was to be the voice of the patient. And that gave me a freedom, kind of a liberty to challenge what the researchers were doing in a way that would help to improve the quality of their research.
Sounds
Really
good.
big. And that was a big change for me. And that set me on the road to research.
Okay. We learned a lot of you. Still, I don't know how you made it to Spain. You explained a long story. I had lots of questions you already answered, but I still don't know how you ended up in Spain.
Well, with my new partner, who's now my wife, she's from Poland. And she actually lived in Sevilla in Spain for about 7 years. And so she's fluent in Spanish. And when we went on our holidays, we used to come to Spain. And I noticed in those visits that the impact of my MS was less.
Mhm.
And it quite intrigued me. And I did a little bit of research to figure out what it was, and also really looking at how my body was reacting to Spain versus Ireland. And I came to the conclusion that in Spain, there's a dry heat,
Mhm.
and it is kind of a constant temperature. Whereas in Ireland, we have a damp environment. It's raining all the time. And that rain causes you to feel cold more.
Mhm.
And one day when I was going around doing my market research, I was at the Galway Arts Festival, and it was the middle of summer, beautiful day. I was doing my surveys, and suddenly a thunder shower came and there was hailstones. The temperature must have dropped maybe 10 degrees in the space of about 10 minutes, right? It was really sudden.
Mhm.
And my legs stopped working.
Okay.
And I just thought, this is my issue. And I remembered back when I was first diagnosed, I was during the winter time in London. I was in the house in the morning, got ready, moving around fine, absolutely no issues. I didn't feel any impact of my MS. But outside was cold. It was about like 0 degrees.
Mhm.
And when I went out the door, I started walking, and within 100 meters, my right leg stopped working.
Mhm.
So for me, temperature and sudden changes in temperature have a massive impact on my mobility. So Spain gave this change of weather, which helps me with my multiple sclerosis. And so as a result of that car accident, I got some compensation for that. And that allowed us to buy an apartment here in Spain.
Okay.
And we were renting in Ireland, could buy a place here in Spain. The prices are so much cheaper than in Ireland. And when I came here on my holidays, I stretched the holidays a bit longer and a bit longer until they were maybe a month long. And I really felt the positive impact of being here. And through one thing or another, we decided maybe it's about over a year and a half ago now, but we decided we would try and move to Spain to see what we could do to do that. A lot of fortunate circumstances came to pass that enabled that to happen. so that my wife could have an income while we were here. And I was in receipt of a pension from Ireland, an invalidity pension. Now, that pension did have a kind of a nasty tag to it, in that it does not allow you to do any paid or voluntary work.
Okay.
Right?
So you can
Um,
just come to podcasts like mine.
In fact, I probably couldn't even do a podcast because it could be deemed to be work in a sense, because if I'm capable of talking to you for an hour, I'm capable of working for an hour.
Okay.
Right. So there's a kind of a gray line there. It's very hard to define what is work and what isn't work. But the trial that I had been on, the COB-MS trial, had finished in 2022 and 2023. And so I was, again, without work, not able to do stuff because I moved on to this invalidity pension, and that stopped me from being able to do anything. But we moved last October, and certainly I have felt the benefits of being in Spain. The weather is just so positive for my illness. And also, in Spain, they grow their own food, and the time from when the food gets to the shopping center is less, and so it's fresher, and it's not forced growth; it's actually natural growth, and so the quality of the food maybe is a little bit better. And we're in a port town, Santa Pola, which is known for fishing, and so we have fresh fish every day that we can go down to the port, and we can actually get the fish from the guys who actually did the fishing earlier in the day. So that's really wonderful. So as a result, it has helped to improve my MS on top of other factors, which we can come to again.
Okay, so are there any challenges for you are faced with living as an Irish person in Spain? How good is your Spanish?
It is horrific. It is a disaster, right? But thankfully, my wife is pretty fluent. And so we've been able to manage, and I'm starting to learn the language, which also, from a cognitive point of view, is really good because I'm having to do something new with my brain. It is harder for me because the lessons are usually about 45 minutes long. I do them online. I can do 15 minutes, and that's fine. And so I can break it up according to my own needs. And if I'm tired or fatigued one day, I don't have to do it. Whereas if I had a face-to-face class, I would be challenged with that.
Okay.
So I'm starting to learn. I'm picking up the words, and I'll get there. It'll take me longer than other people, but that's okay. That's part of the deal with this illness.
And how is your healthcare? So are there any differences, like access to treatment, specialists, or support services? I mean, you said you were living in a rural area in Ireland, so now a rural area in Spain, I guess?
No, it here in Spain. In Ireland, when I wanted to go to the doctor, it was a half-hour drive to get to the doctor and a half-hour drive home. When I wanted to go to the hospital, it was an hour and a half trip to get to the hospital. The hospital in Galway suffers a lot from its under capacity for the amount of people that it serves. If I had an appointment early in the morning, say 10 o'clock, I could have to wait 45 minutes to an hour to get a parking space before I've even actually got into the hospital. And so I'm on an invalidity pension, which is about 12,000 a year. It's not a lot of money. And I ended up actually parking maybe 10 minutes away from the hospital and getting a taxi to bring me to the hospital, which is like such a waste of money, right?
Yep.
Whereas here in Spain, the doctor is a 10-minute walk.
Oh.
So on my mobility scooter, it's about 5 minutes. So that's really good. The local hospital is a 20-minute drive away. And they don't suffer here from under capacity. So when you want to see the doctor or the nurse, it's easy. My wife, for example, broke her toe. And so we had to go to what we would call in Ireland the acute medical unit. And when I used to go there for my MS in Ireland, I could be there the whole day waiting to be seen. And I even remember one day I was there at 11 o'clock in the morning. At 5 o'clock in the evening, the consultant told the registrar, sorry, I can't see him today. He has to come back tomorrow.
Bad.
Right?
Bad.
Like that's horrific. Okay. Whereas here, my wife, when she had her broken toe, went to the acute medical unit. We were in and out of the hospital within an hour.
Wow.
Right.
It's better than in Germany, I guess.
I don't know. I depends, I suppose, on where you are and all that. But the hospital here is a pretty good hospital in Elche. So, from that point of view, fantastic. They have an electronic health record in Spain, which we don't have in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So your information travels with you. Every health professional can access all your health records. And when you get a card, and that is for your prescriptions, for your doctor, for everything. And so I can get my prescriptions in any pharmacy in the area. I don't have to have a specific one. And I don't have to have a paper prescription. It's already on their system, right?
Oh,
Amazing.
brave new world.
Brave new world. I can actually see the price of the medicine, what it's going to be in the app that they have, and I pay 10% of the normal price of the medicine. So the transparency is huge. But to even make it more stark, when I had my first appointment with my neurologist here, thankfully she spoke English. So that was really fantastic. But I was with her for about 20, 25 minutes. She prescribed me my medication, which I don't use any of the high-tech medicines. I have naltrexone, but I also take cannabis for treatment of my symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And she was able to prescribe me Sativex, which I have awful problems with. It doesn't sit with me well at all. I did use it in Ireland, but I had to come off it because of the side effects. But I tried it here again for a couple of months. But anyway, that's digressing a bit. In that appointment, she actually talked to me. She wrote her report while I was there. It was uploaded on her system. She gave me a hard copy so that I could see it and that I knew what was in it. Now, it was in Spanish, so I wasn't able to read it. But if I had Spanish, I would be able to say, yeah, no, I agree with that, or that's right, or that's wrong. In Ireland, I never saw a report from my consultant. The report went to my GP months later, right? So from a transparency point of view, from an access point of view, I could see everything about my healthcare really, really easily here. Whereas in Ireland, I was dealing with delays, I was dealing with bad communication, I was dealing with reports by healthcare professionals that were inaccurate. And I had no way of addressing those inaccuracies because it happened so long after I saw the problem, so long afterwards, we couldn't change it at that stage. It was too long.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's night and day as far as I'm concerned. Now, of course, there are always some delays, there's some teething problems. It's not perfect. Certainly the issue with Sativex has been one for me, whereas in Ireland I was on a medication that had cannabis infused in an oil, whereas Sativex uses ethanol. And the ethanol actually burns my mouth when I spray it in my mouth. And it also gave me chronic reflux. So I was taking esomeprazole every day for 2 years, 3 years. Even after stopping Sativex, it took that long for my system to recover. But when I came here and I started it again, all those symptoms came flooding back, right? And I just said, no, I can't do it. So they don't have an alternative to Sativex here in Spain yet. But the difference in Spain is that they have what they call cannabis clubs or cannabis societies. And you can actually join one of those and you have access to cannabis, though it's produced by a private person, not by a proper pharmaceutical grade production. So I have moved from Sativex to that. It's much better for me. It's much more potent, working much more effectively. So now I have to try and figure out a way of getting the healthcare system here to get me cannabis in the form that suits me best.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, we all we have challenges, and this is what I suppose, as somebody who's a patient advocate, that's my job. My job is to find the problems and then to come up with solutions. And if I do that well, it is going to help my community.
Yeah.
And to give you just an example of that, I said to you earlier that I moved on to invalidity pension.
Mm-hmm.
And this support from the Irish government stops me from being able to do any work. And I was able to find a way of getting a coalition of organizations within Ireland and within Europe to help me try and change that rule.
Oh, very good.
So in Ireland, we have the Health Service Executive, which manages the public health system. We had the Health Research Board, which funds academic research within the country. I had PPI Ignite, which is an organization that was set up in the universities of Ireland to help bring more patients into the research process as part of the research team, not the people who get the medicine, but the people who figure out how to give the medicine and how to, what's the best way of designing a study to have something that is the most effective for the patient with the least impact on that patient. So we have PPI Ignite, IPOSI, which is an organization that is allied to UPATI, which you're familiar with. And they also, IPOSI also represents industry, the pharma industry in Ireland. And National Clinical Trials Ireland, Health Research Charities Ireland, a few organizations came together and we lobbied the government and we spoke to them in the Department of Social Protection who administers this. And last May, we got the rule changed. So now people who are in receipt of an invalidity pension are allowed to be involved in health research without any penalty to their payment.
Fantastic.
Which is fantastic. And now I'm getting to see other people who were similar to me are now getting involved in research because they can, right? They're allowed to do it. So it's opened up a door to a whole group of people who use the health system, are in the chronic advanced stage of their illnesses. And now they can actually do something with their knowledge, their experience of their illness to help improve research for other people. And I'm just overwhelmed with it. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. And I was at a conference in June called the Patient Engagement Open Forum. And that is a conference that is designed by UPATI, Patient Focused Medicine Development, and the Synergist. And they bring patients, they bring healthcare professionals, they bring regulators. So like the European Medicines Agency were there from all around the world. And I was able to share at that we were able to do this in Ireland. And that same problem exists in nearly every country around the world. Yeah. And so it was lovely to be able to say, in Ireland, we have found a way of overcoming this obstacle. And now other countries can follow suit because the door has been opened. We've actually broken the seal and everybody else can now pass through. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out now is how can I not only help with invalidity pension in Ireland and increase that beyond just that invalidity pension, but all the supports that are there for, say, carers or other people with illnesses, that they would have some other way of using their experience of their illness to improve research. So, yeah, it shows you what can be done as an advocate. And because of that, I feel more confident that I'm able to maybe get better access to better medicines in Spain. But we'll see. The language is going to be a challenge, but we'll get there.
Yeah, you will learn it. And you already answered again so many of my questions. You're a challenge for me. Robert. I have to
Sorry.
have all answered, and I'm going through all these questions. And yeah, maybe if we could go a little bit more, dive a little bit more into the topic of multiple sclerosis. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really great what you achieved there, and it is an issue here, and it's an issue for all these different kind of indications. But maybe you have already, you have as well experience in MS clinical trials. So how does patient involvement makes research more meaningful for real world MS care?
This is the interesting thing, that if you live with a chronic illness or any illness, you experience how that illness impacts you on a day-to-day basis, on a minute-by-minute basis. And you can't read that in a book. The book will never really tell you what it's like to live with an illness and the challenges that you face and the ways you have to overcome those obstacles.
Mhm.
So in the study that I was in, the COB-MS trial, because I was part of the management team, I was there every week when we had our meeting about what was happening, what we were going to do and not do. And one day, the postdoc on the study and the PI on the study presented their manual that they were going to give to the patients to teach them this therapy on how to help them with their cognitive problems. And it was a lovely book. Like, it was really produced really well, very good quality cover. You know, the paper was shiny and, you know, really kind of good. But it was totally unsuitable for people with multiple sclerosis. And the reason for that is people with MS, we can have troubles with our hands. Our dexterity isn't good. And this book didn't lie flat on the table. You had to hold it open because the spine was that type of a spine. And so first of all, to me, that was a red flag. Okay, that's not good. The second thing, that the pages were shiny and my sensation in my fingers is poor. And I can't hold a shiny page well. I can handle cheap paper well, right? Because it's rougher, it's got more of a texture to it, so it's easier to do the page. The text in the booklet was quite dense. It was written by an academic, right?
I know what you mean.
Right? So it needed to have more space in it, more air, so that you had enough time to digest each section. Remember, this study is for people with cognitive problems, right? So, you know, you would think that they would have naturally have made it easier from a cognitive point of view to actually see it. So I raised this. I said, no, you can't use this. It's wrong. And I was really challenged at that meeting. Why? Explain, please. Just let us know. So I let them know, and we went through that whole discussion, which was actually very good and was very productive. And they said, well, why don't we ask our patient advisory panel? And I said, absolutely, let's do that. And we did. And they, to a person, all said, absolutely, Robert's correct. And we also need this, this, and this. So we changed the whole booklet. Now, how is this important? Can you imagine going to a therapy session where the first thing that you get, the materials that you're going to use to teach you how to use this, is not suitable for your illness.
Yeah, totally frustrating.
But it's not only frustrating, it tells you that they don't know your illness.
Mm-hmm.
They know nothing about what it's like to live with your condition. So the trust that you now have in their ability to actually teach you something that is relevant to you is less.
Mm-hmm.
So I would nearly walk out of that first session and say, oh, I'm not going to do this. You have no clue what it's like to live with this illness. If you're going to give me a booklet like this, what else along the way
Mm-hmm.
is going to be tripping me up unnecessarily, putting obstacles in my place from actually benefiting from your therapy, right? So now, how do you measure this? It's very difficult because we could have done an A/B trial to see the two different booklets and see what would have happened. But of course, this is a smaller study. It was a feasibility study, so we didn't have the funding really to do that type of thing. But it highlighted to me the valuable contribution that people living with the condition, having them involved in the design of that, can have great benefit. Another example at the end of the study, we did post-intervention interviews with the participants. And I was given this task. Now, we also had a newsletter, and I was the editor of the newsletter. And in it, I was very transparent that I have multiple sclerosis and that I'm part of the MS tribe, right? So, and because we're part of the same tribe, we have almost a built-in trust with each other because we have the same lived experience. Okay. And so one of the people that I was to interview, I was all by phone at the time because it was all through COVID. I rang them up, set up an appointment to talk to them the following week. I phoned up on that day on the following week and they said to me, Robert, I can't do this call now. Can we reschedule it? I said, yeah, no problem. When would suit? We set a time. That was fine. And then I had the call the following week. And the person said to me, Robert, thank you for rearranging the interview. I knew you would understand because you have MS. And if I was speaking to somebody who didn't have MS, I would probably have gone ahead with the interview and the answers would have all been yes, no, whatever it would take to get the interview over fast.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that same person, we had a 45-minute conversation about the study, what they liked, didn't like, what could be improved. So we got a far better understanding of their experience of the study. And that was only because they knew that I understood what their illness is like. Now, there are many other examples that we had in the study. I was training the other the researchers who were doing the pre and post benchmark tests
Mm-hmm.
for their cognitive ability. I, help decide what tools the patients needed to help them with doing the intervention. Many things, and I'm so passionate about including people who have this tremendous knowledge of what it's like to live with a condition, and this inbuilt connection that they can have with the participants in the study that will really enhance the quality of that intervention. And I was, okay, that went really well. And the PI in the study asked me, as we were coming towards the end of it, that they wanted to do a definitive trial of the study, that the results were looking good. And I was asked to be a co-applicant for the grant aid for the study. So that was amazing. Here am I, not a researcher, not an academic, but being asked to be on the same level
Mm-hmm.
as somebody who was a doctor in occupational therapy, right? And not only that, but I actually got to have influence in the budget of the study. So we, as a result of the of my input, we now have two embedded patient researchers in the definitive trial, so that if one isn't feeling well, the other is there, so that they both can actually help each other in it. I also was able to increase the budget so that when they're going around to describe the results of the study at the end, that there is enough budget there so that the patient can actually get to the place where they're going maybe a day earlier, and so that they can rest before they do their talk. That there is enough in the budget for a hire of a mobility scooter, or maybe certain aids that they might need. That maybe they have, like for myself, I have bladder issues, or we might need some tools, and that there's budget there to actually compensate the patient for those extra costs that we have to incur. And why should we have to pay for it out of our own pocket?
Yeah.
It should be inherently part of it. But thankfully, that was funded. The Health Research Board in Ireland, who is the main funder for academic research, supported having 2 embedded patient researchers, supported having an extra budget for the extra needs of the people with MS who are part of the study. So this is what we can do. And so now, okay, I would have loved to be now part of the definitive trial, which will be starting now next month. And I can't. I just don't have the energy. I don't have the capacity to spend a day a week at it. I just can't do it. But there's 2 other people now who get to do it.
That's really great. Congratulations on that achievement. You answered more or less everything. So we are looking into the future. What development in MS care or research would you like to see in the next 5 years?
So I wrote an article for Nature Reviews Neurology recently, and it was published there 3 weeks ago, I think it was, 2 weeks ago. And one of the things that I find particularly frustrating particularly in MS, but I'm sure it is true in other conditions, is when we are assessed the impact of the illness on us, we are tested against an average.
I remember that post, yes.
Yeah. So, but you're not average. I'm not average. I might have better cognitive ability than somebody else, or I might be stronger than somebody else, or I'm able to walk further than somebody else in my perfect condition. And when they look at the impact of my illness, I might have had, say, a 25% reduction in my strength. But because that's above the average, they don't see any impact of the illness on me. Okay? And so they say, no, Robert, you're fine. But in my head, I'm saying, but I'm not fine. I've lost something. And you're not acknowledging that I've had a loss, right? Because you're testing me against an average. So I would love to see a change in how we look at finding benchmarks for individuals throughout their lifetime. That there would be some, when you're first diagnosed and say with MS, relapsing remitting, they say, okay, we want to see you on your best day. We want you to come in on your very best day. We're going to test your cognitive ability to the limit. We're going to test your strength to the limit. We're going to test your endurance to the limit. Okay. And so then we can really track the progression of the illness in the individual. And if personalized medicine is ever going to be something, we actually need to have that individual measurement so that we can assess what the problems are. And this will actually highlight, okay, I'm losing maybe 10% of my cognitive ability. Is that loss a normal percentage loss because I've moved on in age? Or have I lost more than that? And then that's probably my MS impacting it. So maybe we need to address that particular issue in the individual in a stronger way. And in this sense, the patient is now being heard because they feel the loss. But because the measurement system isn't the right way, we're not actually getting the benefit of the right medication or therapies for us to deal with that loss in our particular case. We will then feel heard. We'll be listened to, and our specific needs will be addressed rather than the average need. So I think that is something that I would love to see.
Yeah.
And my other big dream is funding of patient organizations, but that would take probably a whole hour to talk about.
Yeah, we can't do that because my daughter is coming home soon.
Yeah.
Complete the sentence. For me, multiple sclerosis is, and that's a quick fire Q&A.
It is a disease that gives you, that teaches you how to live your best life.
Fantastic. What message of hope or encouragement would you like to share with our listeners?
Your experience of your illness is like a treasure trove, and it is full of unseen wisdom. And I think it is our obligation to share what we have learned on how we live our illness with the wider community. And through that, we will get a greater bonding between us, but also we will make each of our lives better because we will be sharing a positive way of improving our lives.
Fantastic. So, Robert, how can people follow your work or connect with you online?
So I'm mainly on LinkedIn. I find that the best place for what I do. I do have a blog, which is a 30minutelife.com. And I also did a podcast, for a while. And it was more me reading my posts and then reflecting on them after, because I would have did this about a year or two after I wrote the post, and see if what I wrote is still true. So there are brief episodes, maybe 10 minutes long, maybe 15 minutes long, but little snippets of what it's like to live with illness. I've also had stuff on Facebook and X as it is now, but I tend to steer away from those at the moment.
Fantastic. Robert, thank you very much. Of course, I will put the links in the show notes and in the blog article. Thank you very much. Good luck with improving your Spanish. Would like to meet you at one point. Are you still joining the ACTRIMS?
I wasn't able to get funding.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's unfortunately is a pity. I would love to go, but it would cost me thousands.
Yeah. And I will just join online this time because I finalized my Upati in October, so I can't go to ACTRIMS a month before. That's too much with 2 kids. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for all you are doing and contributing, not just to the MS community, but I think to all chronic patients, because you have some really great achievements there. It's really great. Thank you very much.
My absolute pleasure. And I love the work that you're doing, and I think it's extremely valuable for our community.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye now.
I hope you enjoyed the interview, learned something new, and maybe got inspired to become active on your own, like Robert is doing. And I think he really is doing a great job. By the way, next time I will welcome another MS patient here on the show. And this time it will be on Living with MS, Joke Sötert on empowering JAWS, patient advocacy, and life as a midwife. And Joke is a midwife at AZ Alma, a coordinator of JAWS work at MS Liga Vlaanderen, and a patient expert on multiple sclerosis. And she lives in Eeklo, the Flemish region in Belgium. And probably I don't pronounce her name correctly. But please stay tuned and please listen to that podcast. And remember, stay as positive and active as possible. And please let others know about this podcast who might be interested, and rate it wherever you are listening to it. By that, here next time. Bye. Thank you for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You may also be interested in the previously published episodes and posts, which you can find at ms-perspektive.com/podcast. Perspective with a K. You can also get a free PDF with 11 tips for your positive impact on MS at ms-perspektive.com/newsletter. If you'd like to get in touch, you can reach me at nele@ms-perspektive.com or on social media. Hear you next time.